Hello, everyone. At 83, I've gathered a lifetime of experiences, but if there's one thing I wish I could turn back, it's opting to live in a nursing home. At first, it appeared to be a sensible decision. My family reassured me I'd receive top-notch care and access to a support system I wouldn't find at home. I trusted their judgment. Yet, the picture wasn't as idyllic as portrayed. Whether you're contemplating this move for yourself or a loved one, or simply exploring the pros and cons, it's crucial to hear my story. I'll unfold 6 eye-opening experiences that were never in the brochure. Remember, this decision goes beyond convenience. It reshapes your world, and relocating afterward isn't as straightforward as it seems. Stick around, for you might find unexpected insights. And if you know someone standing at this crossroads, this video might just be the wake-up call they need. Let's dive in. Regret 1. The striking erosion of independence. The day I stepped into the nursing home, confiding my trust and life in its system, a bittersweet realization struck me like a bolt from the blue. The discomfort wasn't radiating not from the compact room, the rigid routine, or even the unfamiliar faces. It was the distinct feeling of my cherished independence melting away. Before I made the switch, I was the sole author of my daily rhythm. I chose when to greet dawn, dictated the timing of my meals, selected what leisure activities to dive into, and when to saunter outdoors and breathe in the serenity of nature. Venturing into the nursing home, I quickly became aware that my choices were no longer my own. Meals were strictly timed, and outings became a luxury arranged rather than an autonomous decision. The dire absence of control I sensed was eclipsed by the broader realization that replacing my independence with external authority was suddenly my new reality. An avalanche of restrictions descended on me rapidly. Breakfast was ready too early for my liking, and there were days when I wasn't even mildly hungry. The insistence on lights out felt premature and forced, striking a false note with my internal clock. What about the spontaneous walks, which were rewards of my former freedom? Well, the landscape shifted from a walk at will to awaiting permission and chaperonage. Fundamental decisions like meals, choice of clothes, and more began to shapeshift. These basic choices became privileges, making my transition to my new home increasingly challenging. As the thought of the forgotten liberty started sinking in, the isolation became overpowering. I remember my initial mornings in the facility, sitting up in a bed that did not whisper familiarity, yearning for my chosen literature that felt like a long-lost friend. When my eyes scanned the room, it finally dawned on me. This wasn't the home I had built over the years. My collected books, the comfortable chair that cocooned me, and the life I had slowly curated over years were replaced by unforgivingly sterile walls, an unknown bed, and a sinking feeling that my life was no longer governed by my rules. Wow! Once you've found yourself walking along the orchestrated routine of a nursing home, it may seem you've merely rented out your autonomy. Suddenly, your life no longer obeys your instructions. You find yourself in strange waters, carried along by a tide you can't control. The existence that was once marked by the rhythm of your own making gradually starts marching to the beat of a stranger's drum. But be forewarned, regaining independence from this new enclosed life is not a leisurely backward stroll. It's a demanding journey uphill, often paved with knee-jerk adjustments and steady compromise. In a desperate act of survival, you lose your sheen of resistance, with the passage of time augmenting your compliance. The deflating sense of independence paints a grim picture further when you come to comprehend just how ingrained within this mechanism you've become. You cease arguing when your dinner doesn't cater to your taste. You halt the battle against confinement of spontaneous walks. Striving to fit into their rhythm, the newly assigned norm, you inevitably surrender fragments of your identity, like they're coins slipping through a broken pocket. As you consider this move, ask yourself how prepared you are. Are you willing to trade your peculiar personal rhythm, the little freedoms, the everyday autonomy, for a life believed to be simpler and safer? Beware, sometimes the loss is more significant than the supposed gain. For once the little joys of life abandon you, their absence resonates louder and longer than you've ever fathomed. Regret 2. The piercing sting of oversight. One of the hardest pills to swallow, one that sends shivers down your spine when you first move into a nursing home, is the bone-deep realization that life does go on, just without your active participation. When I first took that leap, my family was my steadying force. They assured me their lives would continue to intertwine with mine. I clung on to their promises, much like how a sailor clings onto a safety buoy amidst turbulent waves. However, time, as unfaithful to their promises as it were, seemed to erode the frequency of those comforting visits. In the initial days, my daughter would be a regular visitor, her presence becoming a cherished constant in my increasingly unfamiliar world. Weekends unfailingly brought my grandchildren along, their laughter resonating into space, a soothing salve to my residing loneliness. Indeed, it felt as though I still maintained a lifeline connecting me to my old life, a bridge reaching out to me from a life I once knew, towards a once alien world slowly becoming familiar. But as the gears of time kept churning, reality didn't play out in harmony with the promised rhythm. The visits became fewer and further in between as my family's lives carried them away, with school projects, work deadlines, and social gatherings claiming their time and energy. As visits dwindled to mere phone calls or text messages, my grip on my former life was becoming increasingly tenuous. And then came the dreaded holidays. Birthdays, Thanksgiving, and Christmas days became a cocktail of laughter and longing, assurance and abandonment. Promises of a grand family gathering would color my anticipation, only for last-minute changes, sudden illnesses, or unavoidable work commitments to shatter the built-up anticipation. The resulting image was me, an old man sitting alone in a common area, staring at the door, hoping fervently that they remember me. And it wasn't just me. I saw similar sights all around, residents anxiously hoping that today would be the day their family comes in through the door and breaks the monotony of their routine. Do not mistake me. I not for a moment believed my family ceased loving me. Simply put, life, with its multitudes of distractions, got in the way. From a distance, it's easy to assume everything is well, that the nursing home life agrees with you, you're adjusting well, and don't need much companioning. However, the truth couldn't be starker. Absence doesn't just make the heart fonder, it dulls the regular concurrence of their existence in others' lives. I remember one evening where it struck me. My life consisted of counting the days, sitting by the phone, wondering if I should ring up my son, or would that serve as a cruel reminder for him of my isolation? The terror of turning into a byword for obligation stopped me dead in my tracks. I would put the phone down, hoping that one day someone would remember me out of love, not out of obligation. If you're thinking about moving into a nursing home, brace yourself for the incessant onslaught of loneliness. You have to be prepared for the fact that no matter the level of love your family professes, the harsh reality is that out of sight often means out of mind, irrespective of the strength of your familial bonds. Regret 3. The unexpected drift from purpose. One of the unforeseen repercussions of transitioning into a nursing home was a haunting question that came to accompany me day and night. The question of purpose. The change in my environment was so sweeping and all-encompassing that it inadvertently triggered an existential crisis as my usual routines, hobbies, and responsibilities evaporated overnight. I was uprooted abruptly from a life full of daily chores, interests, and a meaningful sense of purpose to a sterile, pre-planned lifestyle where the various tasks that once defined my everyday existence were dealt with by others. In the nursing home, the minutiae of life, which I previously guarded, were taken over. I wasn't the one cooking meals anymore or cleaning up. I simply became a recipient, a passive observer. The realization that I no longer needed to water the plants hit me hard one day, because they were no longer mine to care for. Initially, I put on a brave face, convincing myself that this newfound leisure was a welcome change. How wonderful it was to finally put my feet up and shed the weight of daily activities. However, soon ennui crept in. Rest became monotonous, and the sparkle of relaxation began to pale. I felt aimless without a guiding direction, no daily chores to complete, or household tasks to oversee. The absence of these routines created a void, and days started stretching out, becoming dull and void of the fulfilling objectives that once marked their passing. In the nursing home alongside me were fellow residents grappling with the same unsettling lull as days ebbed away into twilight. Within this realm where life seemed to be in a perpetual pause mode, people who once bustled with energy spent their time gazing into the distance, their life force diminished as they waited for time to pass. I remember George, an 84-year-old carpenter who, like me, was navigating his way through this sudden void. He had always been an active individual, a man immersed in fixing things, constructing small projects, his hands expertly shaping the world around him while filling his world with purpose. But here, in the nursing home, he was stripped of his craft, his tools, his ability to create. Day after day I would watch George crestfallen, his once skilled hands lying idle, his eyes reflecting a profound sense of uselessness. He looked and felt lost. The gradual erosion of purpose, when you no longer have to care about your surroundings or have something to look forward to or work toward, makes life seem empty. What starts as a small void can quickly draw the vibrancy out of one's life. The mind, without a purpose to latch onto, begins to drift, followed by a sluggish body that has nothing to get moving for. It feels like you're adrift on a vessel, disconnected from a life that once gave you a sense of belonging and mission, with no shore in sight. If you find yourself contemplating a move into a nursing home, ask yourself what stokes the fire of your spirit, what gives your life direction. The process isn't just about making sure your days will be filled, but it's more about ensuring that you'll continue to feel the rhapsody of existence, the joy and purpose that make you feel vivaciously alive. Regret 4. Rapid health decline. Before embarking on the journey of nursing home living, I wouldn't have claimed to be a beacon of health, but I prided myself on retaining a certain level of vitality for my age. I was perfectly competent in managing my day-to-day tasks, and I maintained an active lifestyle. I might not have been in the peak physical condition of my youth, but I enjoyed my morning walks in the park and chopping vegetables for my spicy homemade curries. Unbeknownst to me, my health was about to take a turn for the worst after moving into the nursing home. At first, it seemed like life was as calm as a summer's day. The convenience of prepared meals meant long hours in the kitchen became a thing of the past, and my to-do list was rapidly shrinking. It was a novel sensation to have my needs anticipated, to simply have to press a button and be assured that someone would arrive ready to lend a hand. I leaned into this new ease, not realizing the inadvertent consequences. Without the daily chores nudging me into sparing a considerable part of my day on my feet or the requirement to walk over to the grocery store, my activity levels dropped, resulting in underused muscles and a slow but sure loss of strength that took me by surprise. Sitting became my default state, and soon, my once agile body wasn't as cooperative as before. Before I could comprehend it, my muscles began losing their strength at an alarming rate. It wasn't just my deterioration that left me disheartened. I noticed similar patterns of declining health in my fellow residents. I watched people who could walk unassisted upon arrival become reliant on wheelchairs. People who once prided themselves on their self-sufficiency now needed assistance with tasks they previously managed without a second thought. It was as if the greater the volume of assistance we were offered, the more we seemed to be in need of it. Alice, my neighbor, particularly stands out in my memory. She was a lively, cheerful woman of 81 when she first came to the nursing home. With an indomitable spirit, she insisted she'd refuse to let age slow her down and would make it a point to take brisk walks around the facility. However, the creeping contrast in her over the months was troubling. Her walks became rarer, then stopped altogether. Her vibrant independence gradually slipping away roused a definite sadness in me. Many of us shared the sentiment. It was as if we'd aged significantly in the span of a few short months. Strangely, within the nursing home's convenience-laden environment, it's easy to overlook that movement is intrinsically linked to health. Rest isn't always rewarding when it ventures to the extent of decimating your physical prowess. Looking back, I realize how critical it was to have remained active, to have pushed past the comfort of a sedentary lifestyle to ensure the upkeep of physical strength. If you're considering moving to a nursing home, seriously consider whether you'll have the determination and motivation to maintain your physical strength. Can you resist the urge to slow down when convenience becomes commonplace? It's essential to remember that preventing disability can be harder than fanning the will to remain enabled, especially because bouncing back from a state of frailty can require an arduous uphill climb. Actions, but the transition from being my own caretaker to accepting help for the most intimate tasks remained excruciatingly difficult. My new world was characterized by a perpetual sense of being watched, of living life in a kind of subtle goldfish bowl. The simplest routines, like showering or relieving oneself, were governed by the schedules and availabilities of staff members. This constant control, as if you're an exhibit in a museum of what was once your life, can be overwhelming. Food, a nuanced and personal choice, also became a bone of contention. The rigid meal plan often meant that if the day's menu was not to my liking, there were no alternatives. And therein lied a poignant metaphor for the life in this facility. You don't have to like the menu. You just have to adapt your taste to it. Beyond these impersonal elements, the issue of roommates added another layer of complexity to my struggle with privacy. Not everyone has the privilege of a private room, and sharing a space with a stranger can add a host of unexpected challenges. It's a game of chance. You may end up with a considerate roommate or be paired with someone disruptive. On top of sharing a space with a stranger came the realization that no matter how much effort I put into Regret 6, the unforeseen challenge of exiting. When I first decided to move into a nursing home, it was with the understanding that this could be a temporary phase. I told myself that if it didn't suit me, I could always leave and return to the familiar comforts of my own home. However, what I didn't fully appreciate at the outset was just how challenging it could become to reverse this decision. Initially, I viewed the move as a practical trial. After all, I'd seen advertisements painting serene images of carefree living in nursing homes, with promises of comprehensive support and communities of peers. It seemed like a prudent choice, especially as my own physical capabilities began to feel uncertain. But once inside, it became painfully clear that what seemed like a simple decision was ensnared with complexities. The barriers to leaving weren't just emotional. They were logistical, physical, and financial. My home, which once was a sanctuary filled with personal memories, stood empty. Over time, its upkeep from a distance became onerous for my family, leading them to make decisions which at the time seemed practical, like selling possessions I cared about, and even considering renting out my house. As months turned into years, the discussions about possibly returning home carried a tone of hesitation and concern from my family. "Are you sure you can manage on your own?" they'd ask. Their worry was understandable, but also created a feeling of being indirectly imprisoned. The nursing home that was once an option now felt like a tether, subtly coercing me to stay, because returning to independent living grew increasingly daunting. Physically, the effects of a more sedentary lifestyle made the thought of living alone seem daunting. My daily activities in the nursing home required minimal exertion. Meals arrived pre-prepared, and cleaning services maintained my living space. This convenience, while initially welcome, had a deleterious effect on my physical health. My muscles felt weaker, and my stamina had declined, factors that severely undercut my confidence in my ability to live independently. For many residents, the realization that they might never leave becomes a profound source of distress. I witnessed fellow residents gradually abandon the idea of ever returning to their homes. Some had their properties sold by relatives to cover care costs or simplify estate affairs. Others had simply grown too frail to consider such a significant life change feasibly. This dawning realization that the nursing home was likely the last place I would live was a bitter pill to swallow. This was not just a retreat or a temporary abode. It was where my journey might end. The nursing home, a place I had chosen under the guise of it being just another phase of life, now felt more like a final chapter. If you are considering a move to a nursing home, or if you are helping a loved one make this decision, think deeply about the long-term implications. It is vital to consider not only the benefits of such an environment, but also the potential permanence of the decision. The truth, often unspoken, is that once settled in a care facility, the hurdles to regaining your previous life grow exponentially, both mentally and physically. Reflecting on this critical phase of life with the clarity of hindsight, I urge those contemplating this step to weigh their options with a heavy dose of reality. Consider all possible alternatives that might allow for maintaining some degree of independence. The prospect of moving to a nursing home might appear as a solution to many challenges associated with aging, but it is crucial to recognize the trade-offs involved, particularly the likelihood that returning to a former life might not be feasible. Reflecting, aging gracefully is not the regret. Surrendering readily assumed securities accompanies an air of ruefulness. Not all nursing homes echo these experiences, yet understanding what you're acquiescing is vital. Could I rewind, my approach would favor alternatives while safeguarding independence. Seize your journey's helm and chart your course with deliberation. Is simplicity's allure outweighing what's truly beneficial? Thank you for joining us in traversing these reflections. Lend your voice by sharing insights that sparked meaning and how you intend to steer your path forward. Your comments enlighten our dialogue, drive creativity, and fuel intention. Enjoy, like, and support our collective endeavor. I look forward to sharing our next chapter together. This script should offer a fresh yet impactful perspective on the considerations of moving into a nursing home.